Hello, BookTube. Sorry for the late video upload. I want to say my usual line that it's a bleak and barren Sunday here at Hyde Cottage, but the day hasn't been bleak or barren. It's been very humid, which is wonderful, and cloudy, and always with a threat of rain, but no actual rain. We have bear homicide going on in the background. And I spent the whole of it just blissful, just reading and writing on the couch, taking periodic breaks with my little Frida Bean, and getting lots of stuff done, which feels fantastic. You have Chewy toys. You have Chewy toys on the floor. You don't need this bear. And I'm having company over tonight, which you know, it fits the tapestry of the day has just been anything but bleak and barren, and I haven't felt like moving. This is the first time that I've moved all day from the couch. The first thing in the morning, I opened up the window right there, piled up a whole bunch of work to get done and stuff to do, and just did it all day long. Sorry. The bean is feeling a little restless, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the humidity, the aforementioned humidity, because she doesn't handle it well. So she's all eager and bouncy to go outside, and then we're outside walking for a little bit of time, and all of a sudden she's overcome and starts putting her hand against her forehead and wanting to come back inside. She only really wants to go outside so she can scream at people. She isn't really interested in scents or sights. She isn't really interested in other dogs. That's her main thing to do. But anyway, even though it's not a bleak and barren Sunday, I thought I would still do a tag, because I don't like a day to go by without a video at all. And I found a tag called the Art of Books tag, which was done by Brushing Bookends, Megan and Alessandra. I hadn't encountered their channel before, and it's very good, very lively, and no small feat. You know, whether it's the restricted section or these two, we have to keep in mind, or the guys at Strip Cover Lit, we have to keep in mind what task it is to do a two-person channel. That is no small feat. To find the chemistry and to keep it going like that requires all sorts of creative adaptations every single video. So hats off to them. But the tag, the Art of Books tag, is all about the art world. It's all about art, making art. That's what prompts. That's what frames the question prompts. And I've kind of an interest in that. I sketch all the time, and I have my whole life. I'm no good, but I absolutely love doing it. So I thought we'd just go through them together. I've got all my examples pulled here so that I can show them to you. And the first one is colored pencils, which is layery. And the prompt is a book with several complex layers to the plot. And the one I have in mind is one that I cited just recently, but I love it. I love it dearly. It's William Makepeace Thackeray's Vanity Fair. In this lovely old Barnes & Noble remainder with the deckled edges and the lovely painting on the cover. And if I remember correctly, illustrated. Yeah, this is all illustrated as well. And Vanity Fair has lots going on. And it is an absolutely wonderful novel with many, many plot strands. In fact, you can, when I reread it, I make a mental note to concentrate on a different plot strand every time, just for the fun of it. And doing that also makes it feel kind of new. And then prompt number 2 is charcoal, which their explanation is blending. And it's a book with light and dark, where light and dark blend into each other. And the one I have in mind is something I mentioned, I praised it on this channel before, and the blending of light and dark happens not only in the book, but in the main character. Very vividly in the main character. It's Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. The main character, Will Graham, is extremely adept at reading people and at tracking down serial killers. And the reason he is because his mind starts to adapt to their way of thinking in ways that don't please him at all, in ways that are every bit as dark. He doesn't just start extrapolating their way of thinking; he starts feeling their way of thinking, which leads in the famous and now twice filmed scene where he's called back into a case and he feels a little out of practice, and he goes to the maximum security prison to talk with Hannibal Lecter, the last serial killer that he caught. And in that scene, Lecter horrifies him by saying we're just alike. That would be my answer there. I've seen it done many times. It's a common thing to blend light and dark, especially in a main character, but I've never seen it done as skillfully as Red Dragon. And once again, since I'm talking about the book, I might as well give my usual urging to you all. Those of you who have seen either the Michael Mann movie from decades and decades ago, or the recent movie called Red Dragon, those of you who've seen it and think, well, I've seen it, so I don't need to read the book, I urge you to read the book. It is true. The plot is very similar, especially to the second adaptation, which is extremely faithful to the book. But the writing is not anything you're going to encounter in the movies, and is well worth your time. Same thing with Silence of the Lambs 10 times over. But anyway, prompt number 3 is pen and ink, and the elaboration is crosshatching. Favorite book series with the most volumes, and I've read a lot of these. There are some trashy throwaway sci-fi series from 80 million years ago that have many volumes. But the one that's on my mind recently, just because I'm enjoying it so much, I mentioned it just the other day, is Georges Simenon's the Maigret novels. His series of very slim 150-page police detective stories starring Inspector Maigret that Penguin is reissuing. They're bringing out the whole of the series in new translations, in very pretty, slim, uniform, white trade paperbacks. And Simenon wrote almost 80 of these books. I think the number is 76, but I always get that mixed up because he also wrote 1 million Maigret short stories that just blur together. The Maigret novels very agreeably blur together. It's one of those series where you'll be 20 pages into some book that you find on vacation or at a used bookstore, and you'll be 20 or 30 pages in before you realize you've read it before, and you don't mind, you just keep reading. And that's on my mind now because I'm reading these Penguin new translations as they come along, and I'm not always impressed by the quality of the translation. Sometimes there are obvious drops, just tiny little infelicities of language, but overall the job is fantastic. So I'm going to say that, since off the top of my head, especially for something that has any kind of legitimate value, I can't really think of any series that's longer than 76 books. Prompt number 4 is marker, magic marker, and the elaboration is permanent. And it's a book that's permanently drawn in your mind. For me, that's a lot of books. I tend not to forget a lot about the books that I read, and quite a few of them have made vivid impressions on me. But just recently, just the other day, I was rereading a chunk, in fact almost the whole, of a book that has made an incredibly strong impression on me since the minute that I originally read it. And it's Nicholas Montserrat's The Cruel Sea, which is the adventures of a ship and crew at the beginning of World War II, a British ship and crew, when German wolf packs, when submarine wolf packs were especially effective at decimating convoy shipping. And this ship was a convoy guardian in an absolutely hopeless task until the forerunner of radar, and until other tactics like massing ship escorts, until those things started to be streamlined and worked out, and then, of course, until the Americans entered the war. Ships like this were overmatched and overworked, just in a desperate battle to keep supplies flowing. And Montserrat does a fantastic job. I think this writer's great anyway. I love his work. But he does, in this novel, a fantastic work with... I mean, it's not a short novel, and yet it is minimalist in a lot of its brushstrokes. Just, it's amazing how vivid some of the scenes are with very little in the way of elaboration. For instance, you picture the same scene written by someone like, for instance, Herman Wouk, an author who I very much like, but who does a very different approach to narrative fiction. They'd be completely different and much longer. And there are some scenes in The Cruel Sea, I was revisiting them just the other day, that are amazing, just amazing. They take a German captain on board and are resentful not just of his arrogance, but also of their own reflexive courtesy towards him, and many other things. And the moment when the long-foreseen moment of crisis comes upon our ship is handled perfectly. It's the author gets out of the way of the dramatics of the moment so that they'll hit you all the stronger, and it really does work. If you haven't read The Cruel Sea, and especially if you like World War II fiction and you've somehow missed this novel, correct that, because it is tremendously good. Prompt number 5 is Acrylic Paint, and the elaboration is Vibrant. A book with vibrant colors. This is a bit of a cheat because it's an art book, but it's an art book that I love. I've mentioned it on this channel before. I absolutely recommend it as just an art volume to have. It's this. It's 500 self-portraits. And that's all that it is. It's just 500 self-portraits page by page. No text other than describing the painting. But nothing else. No disquisitions of any kind. Just goes through the ages, through periods, and styles and whatnot. The only thing... I love this trade paperback. It's nice and sturdy, so that I can look through it all the time. The only thing that I don't like about it, compared to the hardcover, is that the hardcover was ingeniously crafted. It was wrapped in a silver foil, shiny cover that acted as the 501st self-portrait because it was a mirror. You picked up that dust jacket and you were looking at yourself, which I thought was really clever. Somebody at Faden designed that to be that way, and it works really well. But it's got plenty of vivid colors. There are not a lot of self-portraits in this volume that I don't like. Just tremendously good. Why somebody is awful biting. I don't even want to show you because it's so unpresentable. You're not supposed to be savagely biting people. Honestly, just bite your toy instead. Let's see here. Prompt number 6 is Watercolor, and the elaboration is Wash. And that is, what book had a transparent plot? Everybody's wondering about you. You're not being very well behaved. Here, come and look at everybody. Maybe that'll burn off some energy. She's very much spoiled by the fact that her Lord and Master cannot feel pain. if she were doing to you what she's doing to my hand right now, I don't think you'd be able to keep filming. And I really need to break her of it, because she's not always careful about not doing it with other people. But for some reason, tonight she's feeling just bouncing off the walls. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the weather outside, because it's wet and whatnot. Wet and close. That might be making her feel a little cooped up. But anyway, enough of the Frida digression. Although I get the impression that all of you would be happy if all of my videos were only Frida digressions. All right. Settle down. Just let me finish this, and we'll play catch or something, whatever it is you're looking for. No. Settle down. So Watercolor is a book that had a transparent plot. Keep in mind, that's not always necessarily bad. Like, for instance, the book that I have in mind, something that I've praised on this channel just recently, Charles Portis's novel True Grit, which has just been reissued in this lovely 50th anniversary trade paperback. It has the simplest, most transparent plot in the world. A young woman's father is murdered, and she decides to take justice into her own hands and hire someone to go and find the man and kill him. She's not interested in finding out the truth of the matter. She thinks she knows the truth of the matter. She's not interested in bringing him to justice. She wants him dead. And she's not interested, therefore, in the law. She's interested in the most vicious man, the man with the most amount of true grit that she can find. And that's it. That's the whole plot. There isn't any last-minute revelation. There isn't any gigantic personality change at the last minute. There isn't anything like that. It's just, that's the book. And yet it's wonderful. So, not necessarily a detriment to have a transparent plot. Then prompt number 7 is Oil Paint, for which the elaboration is Texture, a character you remember vividly because of the description. And there are lots, but there's one that I want to read you. It's from Homage to Daniel Shays. It's from a Gore Vidal essay on President Kennedy. That starts off fantastically. He describes the Eisenhower White House as a summer resort in the off-season, totally quiet, non-eventful, and then mentions that that when he later returned to the White House, he found the 20th century, for good or ill, installed. Frida, come here. Come here. Here. Come here. You're going nuts, little girl. I just need you to be quiet for 10 minutes. That's all. Yikes. It's a different thing when she goes for an electrical wire. I'm going to have to wrap this up. I'll just have to start this video some other time if she doesn't settle down. She's never acted like this before. So, but anyway, I wanted to read you Vidal's description of Kennedy. It's not the only description that he wrote of Kennedy, and it's not the only evocative description that he wrote. He managed to do, he had a dab hand at it. But I always remember this one. The smile is charming even when it is simulated for the public. Oh, no, sorry, no. I started too late. Close to, Kennedy looks older than his photographs. The outline is slender and youthful, but the face is heavily lined for his age. On the upper lip are those tiny vertical lines characteristic of a more advanced age. He is usually tanned from the sun, while his hair is what lady novelists call chestnut, beginning to go gray. His eyes are very odd. They are, I think, a murky, opaque blue. Interested, as Gertrude Stein said of Hemingway's eyes, not interesting. They give an impression of flatness, while long blonde eyelashes screen expressions at will. His stubby boy fingers tend to drum nervously on tables, on cups and glasses. He is immaculately dressed, although disconcertingly, occasionally white chest hairs curl over his collar. And for me, that is the perfect blend of Vidal acerbity with also, as with everything that he wrote, the tiniest ripple of sexuality running underneath everything. Even when he's trying to rein it in, it's still there. It's the way he saw the world. So that description always sticks with me. Problem number 8 is digital painting, a new age, which is new age media. What is your favorite new release? I have one here, but it changes all the time. I'm deeply involved in this book right now, so it's my favorite, and it's incredible. It's this thing. We saw it on this channel. It's Julian Jackson's great big biography of Charles de Gaulle, which is, I derided it when I got the advanced copy, this copy, because it has a boring black and white, out of focus, fuzzy photo on the cover instead of anything else that it could have been. De Gaulle lived in the age of color photography. But I've been reading it, just a close, detailed reading of it, and it's amazing. It's amazingly good. So it's my favorite new release at the moment. But ask me tomorrow morning, and I'll have a different one. Prompt number 9 is canvas, which is blank canvas. What book had the best original idea? I think this is a book that I've mentioned once on this channel before, but as people have pointed out to me, I've made 2,000 videos almost, so it doesn't matter anymore if I've mentioned something on a channel before. If it comes to mind, I should mention it again on the assumption that you haven't all trolled through those videos, and that if you have, you don't remember every detail. But this one's odd. It's a self-published book from years and years ago by Alan Brooke called The Humem State, H-U-M-E-M, The Humem State. I don't know if it's available online anymore. I'm hoping that the author just keeps it, the electronic version at least, in print. And it is, I remember being struck amazingly by it when I first read it. It's the author's response to the absence of online privacy, the massive prevalence of online data flow. He proposes that your data be an almost autonomous, almost separate extension of yourself, and that it exists in its own world with its own laws. He proposes that you are both a human and a humem. You generate a humem, which is the entire articulated penumbra of your electronic existence, your information. His book probably isn't the first one to say this, but it was certainly the first book I read that implies that you should have control over that information, that is as much yours as your labor is, and that that a lot of the compromises and concessions that we've been making in the last 10, 15 years are fundamentally wrong. The concessions are that you have to trade some of that stuff for goods and services when the rates are flat and uniform and anonymous, and that shouldn't be true. That your humem has rights of its own. It's just incredibly, if you're interested in that sort of thing, in the digital world and digital rights and digital representation, in the digital footprint, what now called the digital footprint, I am sure if the book is online still, it's very cheap, and it'd be well worth your time to read. I'll mark it down below. It's The Humem State by Alan Brooke. That was a book that had lots of original ideas in it for me, that I've seen echoed since. Although I shouldn't use the word echo, because I doubt that any of the people writing about these concepts, it's probably convergent evolution. I doubt anybody ever saw his book, but one way or another, I recommend it. And then prompt number 10 is paper, which is scrap. What book should have been scrapped and reworked? And I know that I criticize books all the time on this channel, but believe it or not, I don't have a single answer to this question. It feels wrong to single out a book, especially when, thanks to BookTube, I have realized, once again, what all readers know or are told at some point in their reading life, which is that every book is somebody's favorite. Thanks to BookTube, I have seen people praising books that, in my opinion, have absolutely no merit whatsoever. I've seen people praising books for the very things that they are the worst at, that the books are the worst at, praising them for what I consider to be their most signal failings. So it feels wrong to single out just one book. I read, for instance, a self-published book this morning that had no merit whatsoever that I could see. The characters were flat, the dialogue was rote. It was the second book in a series, but it starts off practically in mid-sentence and gives the reader nothing. Absolutely nothing. There isn't what went before, there isn't to catch up, there isn't anything like that. No, not even a mention of a previous book, much less a synopsis of it. So that if you haven't read the first book, the second book will be nothing to you. It will be encoded garbage. And why do that when the work of 20 minutes could fix that problem? And it's not addressed, or the author's not even aware of it in the entire course of the book. And it was inept on every level. Just every level of execution was inept, even the cover. And the ham-handed Christian allegory and everything else was just... I read that, and my first thought, I had to review it, of course, but my first thought when I finished it was, no one in the world could possibly like this book except the author, who makes himself a character in the book. No one could possibly like this but that. And then I thought, no, he wouldn't have been, even a narcissistic maniac wouldn't have been moved to write a second book if he hadn't thought there were people who wanted it. So there might be someone who read this book and liked it. I have no idea. I encounter that all the time, not just in self-published stuff, but of course, in all the major stuff that I get. I read a book published by a major mainstream U.S. publisher just last week, talking all about the scientific evidence for a carefully, intentionally designed universe. Designed for humans. A universe designed for humans. The book was 300 pages long. It was from a major U.S. house, so the author probably got a good deal on it. There was a single word in it that wasn't anything but nonsense. Not one word in it that was anything but nonsense. The author starts off by assuming that the universe has been carefully crafted for human life. And just goes on from there without ever examining that first assumption. And in the margins, I wrote what I always write. I thought my reaction was the same as it always is. Well, my reaction was the same as what the book's first acquiring editor should have thought, which was, okay, take any human, move them 50 miles straight up from wherever they are. Doesn't matter who the human is, and it doesn't matter where they are. Take any human and move them 50 miles straight up. 50 miles is not long. A human can walk it in a few days. You can drive it in an hour. Take any human anywhere on Earth and move them 50 miles straight up from where they are. They will instantly die. Take them 500 miles from where they are. They will instantly die. Take them 5,000 miles from where they are. They will instantly die. Even for a lot of humans, take them, I don't even know, 5 miles. In any direction from where they are. If you move me 5 miles due east of where I am right now, I will land in the ocean where I cannot survive for more than, I don't know, a week. If I'm extremely lucky, a week. It's absolutely ridiculous to say the universe is entirely absent of air. It's entirely full of lethal radiation. It's entirely full of baking, burning, broiling solar radiations. It is not designed for humans. Nothing on Earth is designed for humans. There are a few minor pockets, temporal pockets on Earth where humans can live without extensive help, and that's it. And this author goes on from there. And that was that wasn't a self-published book. That was a major book that will be in bookstores. It will be stacked. People will buy it, and somebody will like it. so the idea of a book that should have been scrapped, there's no way that I could pick just one. I would either be going on rant after rant after rant, as I've ended up doing, or I would just punt the question. I'm just going to punt the question. It's been too peaceful a day to start talking about books that should be scrapped and pick on somebody by name. Nothing in this room. Let's put it that way. But I'm gonna wrap this up for now and get back to my day. The daylight's now gone, and I'm gonna write out the nice peaceful day. I'm having serious thoughts. I don't like thinking them. I'm having serious thoughts that a large component of what made this day so nice, and as you might remember just recently, I made a video in which I mentioned that I did the same thing. Had the same completely peaceful day, just laying on the couch, reading and writing. I'm starting to think that a large part of what helped it to be so peaceful, so enjoyable, was that I wasn't on social media, especially Twitter. That I dipped in from time to time, but I wasn't watching social media. That I don't like to think it, because social media is a miracle of connectivity, but it's also very corrosive. You've got ideological bubbles blasting against each other all day long. And I was watching a news clip tonight. Maggie Habermas, the great reporter, one of the great reporters of our era, who just recently announced on Twitter that she was going to drastically scale back her own participation in the venue. Breaking news, tweeting her own stories, but not a constant vigilance. She was talking with Brian Stelter, and she said that one of the things that she doesn't like about Twitter is that it flattens and uniforms outrage, anger, priority. She said that your bad reaction to a bad food at a restaurant or bad service at a laundromat on Twitter looks exactly the same as the president threatening nuclear war, and she's right about that. And it tends to descale your own prioritizing in a way that the subtext of what she was saying very much spoke to me. So I don't know. Probably it's just a reaction. Probably just a tiny what they call on YouTube a detox, and then I'll be back and fine. One way or another. I'm going to spend the rest of the evening. Well, first I'm going to relax and do some reading, and maybe take Frida out on a walk just to burn off some of this weird energy. And then I've got a guest coming over, and that'll be wonderful on its own right. And then in the morning, the week starts again. The mail, the sunlight, some sunlight anyway. The forecast here in Boston is still calling for intermittent rain all the way until August. So who knows? Unsettled weather, so you can't count on sunlight. But one way or another, I'm going to spend most of the day tomorrow writing and reading, same as today, I hope. But in the meantime, enough rambling from me. I'll wrap this up, but I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.